Hello, hello. Thank you everybody for being here today. Today we're lucky enough to get to speak with Molly Macabre, author of Dark Bloom. And there are just so many things I have to say about this story. And okay, yeah, I'll just begin where I begin. It's as I was saying earlier, it's so hard to find a story that you can completely get lost in and completely immerse yourself in, especially one in a world that doesn't take place in our own. Like it does to an extent, but it's a level removed, thank God.
Yeah.
Um, but it really was a story that I felt engaged in. It was a story I felt impossible to put down, whether it be from just the pacing and the tension that was building up the entirety of the time, the twists, the I love zombies. I love everything about the undead, and it was just so well done and in such a unique manner. Like you have the laughing, you have the actual fear of other people blended in as well, not just the undead. And I'm gonna go on plenty of different tangents and get lost down the rabbit hole here, but hats off. Like really, we absolutely loved it here.
Thank you. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it.
Um, so obviously, for those of you watching, Steve can't make it today. Um, we'll get into that later, maybe. But one of his first questions that he had was, "We would love to know about your favorite zombie media, whether it be science zombies, infected zombies. Obviously, mushroom zombies are taking a role right now with I think it's called The Last of Us.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
we have the vampires in I Am Legend. Where did you take your inspiration from, and how did you find writing it?
So I would say the biggest zombie media that influenced me was The Walking Dead.
Um,
I stuck it out all 12 seasons with that show
really?
over many, many years. Um, and the biggest thing, so a lot of apocalypse media really, really influenced me too, not just, all kinds of like I Am Legend definitely did A Quiet Place,
Mhm.
with their crazy
I
monsters.
loved how they went about it in A Quiet Place.
It's one of my favorites. And then even Bird Box.
Mhm.
Those are, apocalyptic stories that don't necessarily have zombies, but it's all about how human relationships function
Yeah.
in those scenarios where you don't have social norms anymore. You don't have rules or, necessarily consequences or laws. Like
Mhm.
you can literally treat people however you see fit. Obviously, there can be consequences, but just it's everything's so different, and it baffles me like what makes people stick around and hang out with each other, what makes people leave and go away, what makes people attack each other. So that just anything post-apocalyptic just gets those gears turning,
Mhm.
and I just get really into how those relationships function.
That's super valid. I think for me, I always come back to the road, which I know has no other beings. And for me, that's part of what makes it such a harrowing story is the idea that there's that level of realism and it's the relationships that are formed or the lack thereof that really make the story what it is.
Hmm.
And I think, like you said, when societal norms go out the door, what are you relying on? Like, where does your connection come from? Because everyone has a shared connection of like survival. But, people are going to go about it in very, very different ways.
Hmm.
Um, and it's harrowing. But I think I just wanted to follow up on that and ask, was it always going to be like because like with the road you have apocalyptic, but was it always going to have another kind of figure, like another kind of element to it, whether it be the undead or whether it be something else that played a role?
I think that zombies, it sounds kind of cheap, but I think that was just the easiest route to start with because obviously the story wasn't about zombies. Um, I was trying to build a world around my two characters and around the events that were going to take place. So I don't want to say that the zombies weren't as important, like that I didn't put it, as much care, but it was,
Mhm.
I knew I wanted to do an apocalypse. Zombies just kind of seemed to be the best route.
Yeah.
And especially once I got into researching what kind of diseases were similar to being a zombie, and I found the Kuru disease and started getting into, I went down the whole road of like prion protein diseases. And really what snagged me on that disease was it talked about having random psychological outbursts, including laughter. And I was like, oh, that's so creepy. And then I started thinking about there's a video game that I play that has these zombies. They have explosives strapped to their chests. And when you get close to them, they start beeping and they'll explode really close to you and kill you. And it always takes you by surprise. But one thing they'll do, you can tell they're nearby, is because they're like just staggering around and they're like laughing, but it's this pained laughter. There's like no humor in it.
Mhm.
And like they'll say things like phrases like "I had a family once," and it's like it's just so eerie. You're just running through this town and you hear this and you're like, "Oh no, they're
And,
close."
and it's like you have this element of like it's almost like their subconscious is breaking through for a split second. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what got me about Dark Bloom throughout was that like okay, yes, obviously the zombies had their thing, and I'll get into I have a small tangent I want to go on in a second. Obviously they had their thing, but there were elements of it where it's like, wait, like their humanity is showing. And it makes it so much harder, at least like as a reader, I couldn't imagine as the two protagonists, like or as like a person in that world of just like you're sitting there questioning, or you have the instance where, oh gosh, I where Kate um goes and like tries to save or tries to help the baby zombie or like the child because she has
Yeah.
her own past and her own history. And it's like, no, that was a ruse. And it's like, wow, dang, like even when you appeal to your humanity, it's not necessarily going to be reciprocated.
Right.
And forgive me because it's been, I'd say like 3-ish months since I've read it. Um, One of the questions Steve and I had was because in the story itself, you kind of shied away from calling them zombies.
Mm-hmm.
So what remind me what they're called again?
The
And
infected.
the infected, that's right, that's
Yeah.
right. And was that more just an element to try to emphasize the history and the origin of it?
I think that honestly, with zombie media, it just gets kind of lame hearing the word zombie over and over again. And I really tried to focus writing it from the perspective of people, two people who had no idea what was going on.
Mhm.
So, like that's kind of why you just don't get any answers. You get a lot of speculation. You get a lot of like, well, I heard this, and in like a lot of observation about it. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to shy away, and I think they might use it once or twice. I know in the sequel, somebody yells at somebody, "This isn't a zombie movie." So I wanted them to be their own entity. I didn't, and honestly, I didn't want people to get stuck on the zombie trope of like slow moving, you have to kill the brain, all of the regular rules of normal zombies, because obviously these zombies can be fast. Some are slow, some are fast. So some can climb trees, some can open doors. Like I wanted them to be their own thing.
And I think that's a really obviously it stands out in the story itself, but it's also a great point that zombies in media are portrayed in a specific way. And by
Hmm.
associating to that, it kind of takes away a little bit of the world that you've built. But to your point of speculation, which I'm just going to say this, like if you're watching the interview on the book, go back and read the book first because there will be spoilers because we're talking about the book. Um, but to your point of speculation and everything, like Kate, like she leaves, she's between a rock and a hard place. She leaves a terrible situation and somehow finds herself in I don't even want to say a worse one because it's a worse one for everyone. And like for her, it feels like almost a better situation,
Yeah.
as awful as that is. Um, but yeah, like you did, that's a really good point because you did a really good job kind of putting the two protagonists, Kate and Nick, in a way that like they were just trying to figure it out themselves too. Because Nick was obviously going through his kind of depression and his little spiral and everything like that as well. And like we've all had those elements of being completely disconnected, but then being that level of disconnected and the world is falling apart around you is that's a situation to try to imagine yourself in.
Yeah.
Um, one of So obviously backgrounds play a role in this as well, like especially with Nick being an ex-Marine and all that, and like obviously it helped him throughout the story. Is that something that was always intended? Was he always going to be an ex-Marine?
Yes, I like kind of subconsciously based a lot of things on him. A lot of him is me, like more in an emotional way. I
Mhm.
based a lot of his, depression and mental health on things that I've dealt with, but a lot of things about him otherwise were kind of subconsciously based on my husband
Mhm.
because I was writing this very in-depth main character and it's like there's no man that I know better, so just might
Yeah,
as well add in some elements.
fair.
So, and
No.
it's funny because some things were very like purposeful, but some things I would go back and read and I'd be like, oh, that's funny that I did that because that's, something he would do or I could relate it to like just something about our relationship in general.
Mhm. I excuse me. No, that's a great point. I think it is, especially someone that plays such a prominent role in the story as well. You don't want to skip scenes or like obviously there's an element of making things up, but you still want it grounded in truth, especially if it's portraying the role that you had to portray it. And I think it came off in a really, really strong light. One of the things, and I think this goes back to kind of the reality of everything, when they went to the first camp, like the camp in the junkyard.
Hmm.
And everybody had their roles, everybody had their kind of space, and you had people who were excited at newcomers and people who were wary and people who didn't want to share food. I think for me that like just that section was so strong. Like it lingered with me, like even today, because obviously the way it ended, but also at the same time, because nothing in that book ends well. Like my lord. But also just the element of I think that's where the realism hit me. Of like you're not going to be accepted everywhere. Things are going to go right. Like there's rules in place for a reason. There's communities that are trying their best to survive, and survival looks different for everyone. Life looks
Hmm.
different for everyone. Um, but then it's also like the nights at the campfire. Like, yeah, like some people feel threatened, some people want to get laid, some people, if you have a very small community, it makes sense. And it was interesting to see that play out because I think in a lot of apocalyptic and zombie stories and dystopia and all that, you have a lot of showing and telling, but like there's an element of it where you don't really get to peel back the layers, where you have to sit there and peel back. And I felt like that scene in that section did a really, really good job of kind of emphasizing like there's other people out there, people live in a different light, and that's it's a new reality we find ourselves trying to navigate.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to write and I enjoyed getting into like the different aspects of people. And honestly, I think, when I think about what you're saying, how there's just so many layers to people that really just takes me back to The Walking Dead. And I think it's
Mhm.
because of the fact that you have 12 seasons of, a lot of the same people, not all the same people, of course, but you get to know these people so well that sometimes characters can do like literally the most immoral thing and you're like, well, yeah, they had to because you know them at that point and it's
Yeah.
like you get to know these people so well and there's so many different goals and everybody has their own personalities and their own reasons for survival and so yeah, again, just all goes back to that human aspect of things. It's like the apocalypse is scary but also the unknown of how humans will behave is,
Mhm.
in my opinion, even scarier.
Well, 1,000%. Then just a small thing about The Walking Dead because I never I think I only ever watched the first season, but I read a lot of the graphic novel before the TV show came out, and I don't know, I just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
But I think to your point, like if an apocalypse, God forbid, were to happen, I think I'd be more fearful of other people.
Hmm.
Like,
Absolutely.
because other people are also trying to survive. And, you have your close friends, you have your community and people you trust, but, like if you just see someone on the street, like they could be armed, they could be this, they could be that. It is exactly like you said, it's that fear of the unknown. Whereas
Hmm.
today, although there's always an element of the unknown when meeting someone or seeing people, the baseline is stable.
Right. Right.
Whereas in a society like that, like you have no idea if this person hasn't had water in 4 days for all we know. Like,
Hmm.
and Yeah, like there's a level of desperation there that I find really haunting and harrowing, which is part of there were so many harrowing things about Dark Bloom. I think I remember when we first contacted you. I think I just asked, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, well, it's so funny because anytime I'm at a situation like the junkyard was a great example. Obviously as an author, I knew like these characters are going to leave this because this is not the whole rest of the story. And I mean, it could have been like, okay, friends, we need to move on. Thanks for having us. Yeah, no problem. Have a great trip. But like that's not very interesting. So I was like, how can I just make this go terribly wrong? And I think I succeeded.
Oh yeah, 100% you succeeded. But I think on the flip side of that, and that's part of what makes these types of stories so interesting, is that in a different world, they could have showed up and just become part of the community. Yeah, it wouldn't have made for a super interesting story. But if survival was their goal and depending on what they were looking for and this and that, like that could have been an end goal. I think that's
Hmm.
what makes apocalyptic stories so interesting is that everyone's end goal is different. Some people are trying to find their family, some people are trying to get to the coast, some people are trying to do this or that.
Hmm.
Whereas, like, you know, speaking from myself, obviously we've never been in an apocalyptic situation. But at the same time, if I feel like if I found that sense of stability, I'd be like, no, no, we're good. We don't need
Yeah,
to keep looking. Like
right.
I'm more than happy to hang out here for however long they'll have me. Um, but I think going back to just the intensity of the story itself, because obviously you have Kate's background and the abuse and all of that, which was a lot. And I think it was done in a way that really made the reader feel. And as a reader, I felt it, and there were scenes where I had to like sit down and be like, okay, I might be reading this book quickly, but I still need to process XYZ here
Mhm.
as a writer, how did that feel? And like there was because it was a blend. Like you had a couple of very beautiful moments and a couple of very harrowing moments. And you have the moments with Kate and the music, and they're on the porch in the house and everything like that. But then you have the moments of Kate in the house with her ex-boyfriend and this and that. How often did you find yourself having to kind of sit down and pause and take a breath and kind of process that as well?
Um, as cold as it might sound, I just really just wrote it and pushed through. Um, I know that I did have to take a lot of care with how far I went with writing some of those scenes.
Mm,
I wanted it to be uncomfortable without being unnecessary, if that makes sense. I didn't feel the need to and that was the biggest reason that there was like why her ex-boyfriend used the injections to basically sedate her.
mm,
I kept thinking as I'm writing, I'm like, I don't think that someone this sadistic would really even need this. I don't think that would be a necessity, but it was necessary for me to be able to like go dark on those scenes without like I don't know. I guess I could have ended it, but as a newer writer, I was like, this is how this is going to happen.
mm,
So I wanted it to be uncomfortable because you don't fully grasp a situation unless you feel uncomfortable, but I didn't want to go into describing exactly what was happening because there was no need for that. Nobody needed to go through all that. You can use your imagination or not and just move on. Um as far as the lighter scenes, I really enjoyed those. They definitely gave me the warm fuzzies, but as one does, I also was like, this is now too fuzzy. I have too many fuzzies, and now we need to end this. This happens a lot. It happens a few times in Dark Bloom, but this happens a lot in the sequel.
mm.
There's so much going on, and really, Kate is just trying to get like 2 minutes of like
Yeah.
time, and there it really isn't. But I think and that's kind of purposeful in the sequel, but in this I think I was just like, I don't really know where to go from here, so we're just gonna make some zombies break into the house.
Well, I think it made total sense because like when they started playing the music, the very first thing that went into my mind was, oh no, like
Yeah.
they've lost the plot a little bit, which I understand, like we all need to have those nights where you either have a drink or you listen to music or you just like relax. I
Mhm.
feel like we'd need a lot more of them if we're in the world that they found themselves in. It's like
Yeah.
I can't like knock them for doing that. You know what I mean? Like on one hand, you can be like, oh, that's so irresponsible. But on the other hand, it's like, what are they living for, if not to at least enjoy themselves a little bit?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that was kind of what made it so like, dang, like like give these guys a break for 1 minute. It was nice to see them get out of the situation, but I think that's part of what makes it so well written and so engaging was the fact that you still had incredibly beautiful moments scattered throughout what was otherwise one of the darkest reads of 2025, 2025, 2025. Yeah, that's the year we're in. And, and I think yeah, like it's similar to other dystopian apocalyptic stories where you have the light and you see it shining, you see the hope, and you see so much, it makes you see so much beauty in the mundane. And I think that's something that stories like this can really help people see.
That's what I'm hoping for. By including a lot of the mental health situations that I included. Obviously, reading a book like this, like it's mental health representation, it's not going to help anybody. It's not like a solution
Oh
or
yeah.
a self-help. But as I was like really coming to terms with my own mental health situations, it some of the things that helped the most were knowing I wasn't alone.
Mhm.
So like just finding out that somebody shared similar feelings.
Yeah.
So my I don't know if this book has ever helped anybody in that way, but I definitely hope that if somebody has ever felt the same way as me and read that they'd be like, okay, wow, this is really similar. Like I felt these things before, so maybe I'm not crazy. I'm not so shameful.
No, and I think it's really powerful to be able to write that and to be able to put yourself in a position to share it with people. Um, and then obviously we can never like no idea how readers take anything anymore.
I know.
But I can pretty confidently say like a lot of that comes off. You know what I mean? Like there's an element where you can tell like the author has experienced XYZ or like the author has put a lot of thought into how they want this portrayed and everything. And I think it, like write what you know, like putting a lot of yourself and your husband into Nick. Um, and it stands out. It does.
Good.
Um, One of the things we wanted to ask, and this is a little bit less about Dark Bloom, but you're a big representation within the indie community. And obviously, when it comes to self-publishing and going indie, I feel like there's a little bit more leeway with stories like this than trad publishing
Hmm.
would give you an opportunity for. Um, how have you found the community to be? How have you found self-publishing to be through all this?
Oh, that's a big question.
I know, I apologize.
So self-publishing in itself, we'll start with the easier question, I think. Um, I never tried to go trad.
Mhm.
So self-publishing, I thought like to be like traditionally published author to like go with a publishing house, you had to like be Stephen King or,
Yeah.
somebody. And I had no idea how it went. The only things I really still know about it are what I've seen from authors, mostly on Twitter. Like I started seeing about querying and
Mm.
agents and all of that. Um, the biggest reason that I'm glad I never tried that, and I don't think I ever will, is mostly just deadlines.
Yeah.
I work crazy hours. I have two kids. I'm, taking care of a house. I'm, like I have a family. I don't want writing to be a stressful thing. I
Yeah.
don't want it to be like, oh my gosh, like I'd love to spend time with my family tonight, but I really have to get this, last chapter written or whatever. I don't want it to be like that.
Mm.
I think that it's a great route for people who can handle that. I think it's awesome, to each their own. But for me, it definitely, and there is definitely the element too, is makes me wonder like how much would they have wanted to change about Dark Bloom? How much would
I can think
they?
of a few things. Yeah.
Yeah, like I can just see somebody being like, yeah, I don't think Kate should have been in a cage. Like that's a
Yeah.
little, you know, so and that's my own editor will make suggestions, not so much as like, well, not at all because of what he thinks is trendy, but
Mhm.
he'll come to me about things that like just don't work, or suggestions about things, or hey, are you sure this works, are you sure this is what you want to say? And the great thing about that is like I can take his suggestions or I can
Yeah,
not, and I can
exactly.
just keep it
It's
as it
still your
is.
story at the end of the day.
Exactly. Um, the indie community in and of itself, that's a hard question, primarily because there are so many different communities.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty active on Facebook, X, TikTok. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, my dog hit a button and made you go to a different monitor.
Bless.
So cool. Didn't interrupt you, but yeah, now I'm just gonna look at you over here. My light also went out, so that's awesome. Can you give me like 2 seconds?
Oh yeah, you're fine. Take your
Okay.
time.
Okay. Light is back, and I think we're good. Okay.
Wonderful.
I have like half of the things that go to my PC set up to like this little box. I don't even
Mhm.
know, remember the point of it, but basically my dog will step on the button sometimes. So like my monitor, my light, everything else important is still going, but yeah.
Yeah,
Um
my cat used to walk across my laptop's like keyboard like it was nobody's business. I'm like, all right. Like,
love that. So yeah, we've got all the different communities, and I I probably am most active on X because the people there are just like incredible and amazing and so much fun. And like what I like about X is I can post about anything. It does not like, and half the time, like that's my favorite thing to post about. It's just like this funny thing my kid said today, and I'll get like at least 5 people to be like, "That's so funny." Whereas like I could post that on Facebook, and maybe a day later somebody might like it, and it's just funny the different algorithms, the different ways things work, the different ways, apps favor certain kind of posts.
yeah.
TikTok's really cool. I TikTok has been great for like actual readers. Like that's where I found when I was advertising Dark Bloom, I was advertising it mostly on TikTok because I kind of felt like it fell into like the dark romance genre,
Mhm.
and I thought that women were going to be my primary readership. So it was really funny when like right after it released, a male author on Facebook was like, "Oh yeah, I picked it up and I'm gonna read it." And I was like, "Oh my
Nice.
gosh, I don't
Nice.
think you want to do that." Like I was so nervous. I was like, I don't think men are really gonna like my story. Well, a year almost and a half later, I think my readership has been like mostly men, which is
Mhm.
interesting. And I don't know if that's just because there's a lot of male authors on X that I interact with. I don't know what the reason is, but I was interacting on TikTok and putting stuff out there about this book, and this girl, this reader, not an author at all, she actually was like, "Cool, I just picked it up. I'm going to read it." Didn't know me for anything, and there were no reviews. Like
Yeah.
I was a nobody, and there were no reviews on Goodreads, on Amazon, and she
Wow.
absolutely
She just
loved
went
it.
for it.
Yeah,
No.
she just went for it like out of nowhere, and like it's that kind of thing that just warms my heart, and I like keep in mind, on those days when I get a bad review or just I don't make a sale, and like remind myself, remember that chick that picked up your book, absolutely loved it, and has become like a loyal reader of yours,
Yeah.
and she knew nothing. She had nothing to go off of. It could have
Yeah.
been a blank book. There could have been one sentence in
It
it,
could have just been the cover and then nothing. You never know.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that's when it comes to marketing. It's everyone says don't judge a book by its cover, this or that. Hats off, Dark Bloom has a wonderful cover. But there is an element where people are so people are being pulled in so many different directions when it comes to their time and their attention that
Hmm.
convincing someone to sit down and read your book for 8 hours is not easy
Yeah.
to sell, even if you give it away for free. It's hard to convince someone to do that. So I think that's a testament to your writing. It's good that you have a loyal fan from it now. One of the things I wanted to add to that is what we've learned, kind of what Steve and I have picked up on over time doing this is doesn't matter what you write. You never know what your audience is till you throw it out there. Like you could write this
Yes.
sci-fi story completely like I just want middle-aged men to read this. And it's like it'll be picked up by a bunch of like 18, 19-year-old, like whatever. It's you don't know until you throw it out there. And I think that's part of what makes it so fun is like then figuring out, oh, these people like it. Why do these people like it over these people? And this is that.
Hmm.
But one of the things that Steve will be real upset about if I don't ask is the pivot in the final corner of the book. We've got about 4 minutes left, so I'm just really hitting you here, where they get to the
Okay, that's fine.
where they get to the hospital, and then everything goes bad, and then kind of goes right, and kind of goes bad again. What was the reasoning there? Like, was that always intended? Was that the direction you wanted to take the book, or is that just kind of what ended up happening?
I had a completely different ending for this book when I first started writing it. And I will say that that ending has moved to the sequel.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I was on my way to work one day, and honestly, I had no idea about. I guess I don't want to spoil it too much, but
Mhm.
basically, what they find at the hospital
Mhm.
that the doctor's been working on, that was not a thing. I was just driving to work one day, possibly thinking about the original ending, and I was like, wait, what if we throw this in there? And I don't know. It was a thought, and I was like, okay, it's cool. So we could end it, like this. It's not necessarily. It's kind of like an open ending, but it's happy. It's
Mhm.
satisfactory. So yeah, it really was just something that hit me on the way to work one day, and I decided to change it up from what I had originally planned on.
Oh, nice. It's nice to see how inspiration can strike anywhere. And I think this is the other pros of self-publishing is that you don't have like a predetermined ending that you have to write for your editor and
Yes.
whatnot. You'd be like, oh wait, no, I'm going this way. And then just
Yep.
go that way. There's absolutely no one stopping you. I think that's really, really cool. Dang, huh, the more you know. Um, so we have 3 minutes left, and I just want to make sure we get kind of all the little details out of the way. I know you mentioned a sequel. For those who like Dark Bloom, what's the best thing they should do? Well, obviously, what's the name of the sequel? Where can they get a hold of it? How can they keep up with you? And we'll put all the little details in the little like, was it description below? That's the word.
Okay. Yeah, so I already mentioned I'm on X, I'm on Threads, I'm on Facebook, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram. You can keep up with me anywhere. I post all my updates to all of those social medias.
Mhm.
I do have a website. It's macabreMolly.com. I'm really bad about posting updates there, though, so really just following me on one of my socials is best. Without a Whisper is the name of my sequel,
Mhm.
and my editor has it for the second time right now, working on just those final touches. Not dev edits, line edits, grammar, punctuation. He will probably get it back to me at the end of the month. But then it's my turn, and I like to give myself a lot of
Of
time.
course.
If I had to put a time frame on it, I'm gonna say February, which
Okay.
really isn't that far off. Really, I'm shooting for February 1st. It'd be exactly a year and a half after Dark Bloom came out.
Mhm.
So, that'll be on Amazon. There will be an audiobook eventually. I just have to get that
Oh,
final
cool.
manuscript and get Mr. the incredible Joe James working on it again. He was awesome for the first book. Yeah, so that's all I got.
Wow. Okay, because this is news for me. I didn't know there was a sequel in the works, so I'm just very excited about it now. February, it's like you said, like February is not that far, and I think going back to your point of writing at your own speed, at your own pace. Like I think if I had a deadline looming over my shoulder, it would completely
Hmm.
disrupt my creative process as well. Like on top of feeling like I'd have to move over XYZ, I just don't feel like I'd be able to perform at like
Right.
the caliber I'd otherwise want to because I see it even when I read. If I'm not in a reading mood, I'm not going to like whatever I read, regardless of how good it is. But if I am in a reading mood, I'm willing to drop everything for it.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, no, well, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
yeah, we've got so many more questions, but we
Mhm.
were haunted by the 40-minute Zoom timer. It's got its pros and cons.
Oh, I know. Well, that's
Yeah.
okay. We can always do a part two, maybe when Steve's
Ooh.
available.
Yes, yes, we'll definitely all hopefully everything goes well and we will keep in touch about that. But for those of you that made it 40 minutes into an interview and forgot the name, the story is Dark Bloom by Molly Macabre. And thank you so much again. Have a lovely rest of the day, guys.
Thank you. Have a good day, guys.